I often get asked what's Western Europe, because it doesn't really exist for most folks. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. Western Europe for Brocade is UK, Ireland, Nordics, Baltics, and Africa. So I do have a very, very diverse territory, interestingly, although Bristol is my favourite customer. It's very exciting to be here today at the 2015 annual Socitm event. I'm really proud to be part of this event. I'm very proud on behalf of Brocade to be able to sponsor. It's my first time at Leicester City Football Club, and I have to confess I'm not a football fan. I prefer rugby. But it's giving me a little bit of a problem at the moment, because I started off being English, back to the last one. Then I became Irish, because my mum's Irish. Then I became Australian, because my son lives in Sydney, and I'm having a severe identity crisis wondering what to do with the other bleeders should my last choice not work. So, good luck with the Aussies. I've had some very interesting conversations so far today, and as a technology supplier, it's really important for us to understand how our innovations and technologies can support the problems you have and deliver some business value. So hearing about the need to develop the services that you provide, spin up new ones for sixpence, and ever-decreasing budgets, so the more for less conversation that I think most of us are used to, you have some significant challenges. And I think in addition to that, when you talk about future-proofing, really reform to revolution or transformation is where it's at, because this is a big ask. For myself, I think about, when you look at future-proof, when I entered the workplace, which was a little while ago now, did we have any visibility of cloud, mobile, big data, analytics? There wasn't even an internet, let alone the internet of everything. I learned to type in a 1943 Adler, so my visibility in terms of the future, I couldn't even begin to comprehend. When you start to think about the future for our cities, what does that actually look like? I mean, first of all, I'm not going to steal the thunder of this wonderful man, but we all are always constantly looking for increased deliverables within our communities, increased deliverables in terms of health, in terms of public service, in terms of the environments and communities that we engage in. So for me, even having to think about the challenge of future-proofing the city is petrifying. So at that point, I think I'd like to welcome Joan Garcia-Espin, who's going to tell you about the world's first open, and programmable city, Bristol. So thank you.
Thank you, Joan. I know my surname is difficult to spell. Actually, I'm from Barcelona. I'm the Platform Delivery Director for Bristol is Open. Although I'm not new to the UK, I recently moved here. And I moved because this project, Bristol is Open, is extremely challenging for us. And I want to tell you about why the project behind Bristol is Open is different. And I'm aware I will explain things that are not so aligned with the conference, because I will talk about breaking some rules about IT and also about experimenting, which is something that you generally don't want to do with IT service, with ICT service. So my speech will be split in 5 parts, actually talking about the Open Programmable City, also what we have done so far, about Bristol is Open as a joint venture, and also the parts that are helping us to build Bristol is Open, and a bit of the technical insight. So we are taking a look very close to many different megatrends, but one of them that is mostly concerning us is about the growth population, which some say that will stabilize, but still until 2040 we will have a huge increase on citizenship. And not only this, the second megatrend we are taking a look at is the concentration of these citizens into cities, sorry for the redundancy, so of this population in the cities. So we will see an increase on the size and complexity of the cities, and we believe from Bristol that we can do something to enable new applications, new challenges, and to allow us to play a bit today with the infrastructure of the city so that we are better prepared for the future. Because many of these challenges are very well known to to us. We have been discussing about health problems derived from pollution, congestion in cities, which seems to be a bit of the daily thing we face. But if we take a look to Eastern countries, like for example China, this is really new to them. So they are facing huge problems with the growth in their cities. And we have a long experience on ICT and on population and city management, so that we can build the models that are portable to everywhere, not only in Europe, but also worldwide. I must warn you, it's not only about optimizing the city, making things run on the city. It's not only about just reducing OPEX or CAPEX. It's about making the city a place to live for the citizens, so that the citizens don't suffer the city, but they get to eat, and they have the proper services and the enabling technologies to make them feel as if they are part of a bigger entity, a bigger community, not only the local community, but also the government as a community, transport as a community, everything as a community. So at Bristol we have already started some work on the playable cities. We are trying to engage citizens through gamification of some parts of the city, like projecting some animals around the city and allowing the people to interact with them when they pass by on some lampposts, which obviously seems pretty funny to say, but it requires some technology behind and some deployment of ICT technologies up to the lampposts. We have done also a huge effort on becoming the European Green Capital, which means tackling the tough problems of congestion and pollution. And we have done other major efforts to make the city, as I told you before, the proper environment for the citizens to live in. So what we have done so far is mainly deploying infrastructure, but not any kind of infrastructure. We have deployed 144 fiber ring around the city center, I must say. The city has a much wider area. We have also deployed 4 major nodes on this ring, where we concentrate the computing capability and also the ability to configure the network services at our will, not only at the IP layer, but also up to the optical layer, because we are using very advanced optically programmable data plane on that. We have also deployed a number of wireless access points, and we have experimental wireless access technologies, such as wireless gigabit, and also LTE-8, which we have deployed it. But we really are willing to see what we can do with such an amount of technologies, and allowing the people engage with these technologies and use them on different fashions, and on an open fashion. And finally, we have deployed a number of sensors. We have with a radio frequency mesh network, which spans over 1,500 sensors all over the city. Many of them have access points which are directly connected through fiber to the network core, to the network core of the whole infrastructure. And we are looking at deploying very specialized computing facilities at each of the cabinets beside the lamppost, so that we can perform very close computing operations very close to the user. This means processing data directly gathered from the sensors on the infrastructure or from the technologies on the axis. So, why we have done these things? Bristol is Open is a joint venture, so actually it's bringing together the University of Bristol, which owns a very good research experience and experimentation experience on the software-defined networking and on infrastructure virtualization, together with the Network Futures group at the Bristol City Council, so that we can map this new ecosystem we envision for citizens to engage with the city as a community, together with the latest cutting-edge technologies that we can deploy on the network infrastructure, so that we build something else. This something else that we are building is the open programmable city. Open because we are avoiding vendor lock-in, and we are using as many vendors as possible for the different part of the infrastructure, and we are open to any vendor to join us. Programmable, because virtualization and software-defined networking is on our DNA, and we want the infrastructures to be as flexible as possible to adapt to any kind of application, and of course, city, because we are using a city-wide experimentation facility. So, what does it do for us? So actually, it does bridge the research that we see at the university, which is far-fetched, which goes up to 10 years and more, together with the today version of the story of the commercial world and of the product development. So bringing these two things together and making the proper bridge in order to catalyze the appearance of new applications and the appearance of new communication channels between today and the future is a cornerstone for us. Our partners, obviously we have many different kinds of partners and providers, but the first of them, because are the ones that are paying, are the Department for Culture and Media Sports and the Department for Business Innovation and Skills. These partners are supporting us on the financial side, and then we have some other partners which are also on the financial side that with less impact, but bringing a lot of know-how and innovation push to the Bristol Open Initiative as the Innovate UK catapult. And also we cannot forget about research, because we are bringing the two worlds together, so we also have managed to enroll some other funding institutions as HESCE and EPSSC. But this is the story for the funding. The story for making things happen in the city relies on three major partners. One of them is at Bristol, the Science Museum in Bristol, which has a very long track record of contributing to education, to making children and adults enroll on the science, and has also a very futuristic visualization dome, which would allow us to really bring to the interaction and to the very high resolution visualization those experiments that are run on the university, which require supercomputing capabilities and that produce high data sets. Obviously, these two things on the set, each one works very well, but we are linking both of them together so that we can run very complex simulations on supercomputing or on facilities in the university, and then stream all the outputs back down to the visualization facilities at Bristol. And moreover, the capacity of the network allows us to make this interactive, so even we can go for augmented reality or virtual reality manipulation of the data sets live. The other partner that is helping us to enroll all the citizenship and to tackle the cultural side of the story is Watershed, and especially the Pervasive Media Studio Group at Watershed. They have also a very long-term record of collaborating with the BBC, and they have very skilled people in many disciplines, mainly focused on culture, that will allow us to build the concept of community and also make the people, engage the people with a different set of experiments we are going to run on the next year. And finally, we cannot forget that, as I was mentioning before, the impact has to be somehow pushed into the business. This is why we are relying on EngineShed, which we can find one of the best positioned incubator in the UK that will allow us to also enroll these SMEs that cannot afford the kind of experimentation facilities we have so far on the city infrastructure to deploy at whatever layer they are working, either application or very low infrastructure details, to deploy their applications and to test their solutions on a scale. Finally, the providers that are making it happen, you may recognize some of them. We are working, as I said, with a high variety of them. Of course, Brocade, which is hosting us today and Validas, is also on the list, because we are building an emulation facility using their equipment that will allow us to test some pre-production functions that will have to be moved down to the city infrastructure afterwards. And just to finalize my speech, I want to give you a bit of insight on the technical part of the story, besides the maps that I have shown to you before. Since we have software defined working on our DNA, we have created a set of layers on our service infrastructure, ranging from the lowest part of the infrastructure, as you can see, the different kinds of systems that we have out there, wireless, wired, and computing facilities. We have a number of gateways or drivers that we deploy on top of these systems in order to enable them to be controlled through software-defined networking, and we are deploying the software-defined control on top of that. All this work we are doing together with the University of Bristol and the High Performance Networking. Then on top of this, we have two ways to grow up. We can go through the data path, which is the one on the leftmost side of the slide, where we can build a set of layers to collect data, model data, store data, and analyze, and so on. So up to whatever layer you want to go, based on the application you want to run on the infrastructure. And on the right-hand side of the story, we have the support for the cloud computing part of the story, which means that we are using a set of technologies, in the slide specifically OpenStack. We are mentioning OpenStack because it's the core of our cloud facility, in order to deploy whatever experiment our partners want to run on the city, or whatever software they need as a middleware to interact with the city. So three main parts of the story, as I have been mentioning around the presentation as a summary, are the multi-technology support for multi-systems infrastructure. So we have to see the Bristol is open infrastructure as a system of systems, network that has to be managed on a special way, so breaking some rules of traditional OSS and DSS. Software-defined networking, again, is the core for the control. We are evaluating a number of setups for making software-defined networking secure and robust for operating such an infrastructure that is spanning on the whole city. And then finally, network virtualization. We are relying on very fine-grained virtualization algorithms and capabilities that not only step up to the IP layer or the layer 2, we are even going down to the optical virtualization, and we can actually compose the optical plane at each of the nodes at our will, and then correlate with the services we are deploying on top of that, layer 2, layer 3, and onwards. And just to finalize, I want to show you the reference architecture we have so far, which is kind of summarizing the previous slides. So at the very center, you have the network infrastructure, this varied network infrastructure. We have a set of SDN capabilities enabled on top of that. And at the edges, we have either computing or storage facilities. Any shape of the cloud you can think of should be connected to the infrastructure and should be correlated in terms of service provisioning with the network node. This is why we have a service orchestration layer on top of that. And this is the perfect ecosystem, we believe, for building city-wide applications. So we will be working on defining some of these interfaces. Some others already exist. And our major effort for next year will be to create a set of application programming interfaces on the top so that we can run city applications. Okay? And the last one, just to give you a better grasp of how real this deployment is, I wanted to show you the slide of the current wireless technology that we have deployed. Because most people think that fiber is boring, so we have a bit more of fun with the wireless. First of all, we have the wireless deployment for accessing the network infrastructure based on Meru devices, which is span all along the harbor side of Bristol and a bit more towards the east. Then we have a set of backhauling point-to-point high-frequency wireless connections that allows us to extend the fiber capability to many other places where the fiber cannot reach. We have some experimental wireless devices, Blue Wire from the vendor Blue Wireless, which are based on the wireless gigabit standards that are being cooked right now. This technology should allow us to provide access up to 1 gigabit per second to different citizens connected to the same access point, compared to the limits to the Wi-Fi. This is really a leap ahead in terms of wireless connectivity. And this is deployed on the hardware side only. We have also an LTE network deployed, which we are finalizing the installation, and we are also just processing the application for the spectrum to be able to operate the LTE on the city center. This is the LTE network on the city center. And we have also LTE kit from National Instruments, which is currently being evaluated at the university labs. Once we finalize the evaluation, we will pack it into ruggedized racks so that we can deploy it out there in the city with massive MIMO antennas. This equipment is not prepared to be out there in the field, so probably this will be temporary, whereas LTE is permanent. It will be a permanent deployment once we get the license. And finally, as I was commenting to you before, the RF mesh network. I mentioned we have 1,500 sensors out there in the city. Many of them are for lighting. Some others are for CO2 levels, humidity, and temperature. We are trying to agree right now with the City Council the applications we are going to run, and also dealing with our provider in order them to open some specific calls to the devices so that we can create through SDN some applications directly tackling with the data that the sensors produce. And as I told you before, we have to finalize we have some lampposts already connected through fiber, and we want to connect more lampposts to the fiber infrastructure, because we expect exponential growth of the data we are going to generate through the sensors, and we are going to push the RF mesh network to the limits to see how it behaves with massive amounts of data. And as we say on my mother tongue, muchas gracias, thank you very much. This is Bristol open.
Good afternoon, Adrian Ridpath from Shropshire County Council. What lessons have you learned? What would you do differently if you started again?
Actually, that's a good question. What we are doing here is that we are not binding ourselves to specific solutions. We foresee that the experimentation on the city infrastructure is the cornerstone for us. So we have to be able that this is usable, this infrastructure is usable for any partner trying to build applications on top of the city. And it will allow us to build what we call the city operating system. So actually trying to bind together all the different systems and services that the city councils already have, and making a kind of dashboard for not only getting data of the city, but also for interacting with the citizens through this front end. Okay.
That's what we've got time for Juan and Joan, so thanks to the two of you.
Thank you.